It's Tuesday, March 25th, 2025.
This is CBS Mornings Plus. Here's what we're talking about.
A prominent journalist is accidentally included in a text chat about top secret war plans by Trump officials. We've got the details.
I inadvertently discovered a massive security breach in the way the national security establishment conducts its business.
Two little letters are changing the world in a big way. AI. Pulitzer Prize winning author Gary Rivlin stops by to talk about what artificial intelligence could mean for your future.
Plus, get ready for another edition of CBS Mornings Deals, and we are bringing you more exclusive discounts you will not want to miss.
Are you feeling the burn? Heartburn, that is. We've all been there, but when should you be concerned? Dr. LaPoop breaks it all down.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to CBS Mornings Plus.
Welcome to the Plus. We were on your TV, mesmerized by Seinfeld, as are all Americans on all streaming services forever, for all time.
I still remember the last episode. We ordered pizza. Do you remember the last episode?
They're in jail, right? They're left in jail? Yes. Yeah.
Spoiler alert, in case anyone's not caught up. But we digress. We begin this morning with the latest on that stunning security lapse out of Washington. The editor-in-chief of The Atlantic magazine, Jeffrey Goldberg, revealed it all in an article that reads like a thriller, where he said he was mistakenly invited to join a text chain and sent plans for U.S. attacks on Yemen. That included National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and other top members of the Trump administration. He says the officials then began to message about secret plans to attack Houthi rebels, including what Goldberg says were, quote, operational details. Charlie D'Agata is at the Pentagon with the security and legal implications. Charlie, good morning.
Good morning to you, Adriana. Officials tell me the rules are very clear. It is strictly forbidden to share classified information like the type alleged on an unclassified system. But this morning, the White House press secretary is pushing back, saying nothing on that thread was classified and no war plans were discussed.
The U.S. bombed Houthi rebels, an Iran-backed terrorist organization operating in Yemen, on March 15th. But 2 days earlier, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz started a group chat on the non-government-approved messaging app Signal, sharing sensitive details and policy discussions with 18 participants, including Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and, by accident, Jeffrey Goldberg, editor-in-chief of The Atlantic magazine.
I assumed that someone was playing a hoax, playing a trick. I found it completely improbable that the top national security leadership of the United States would be discussing on a commercial messaging app the possible imminent attack on another country.
The chat included group debate about the necessity and timing of the strikes. And then hours before the attack, Goldberg says Hegseth shared sensitive and possibly classified operational details, including information about targets, weapons, and attack sequencing. Goldberg finally believed the chat was authentic when bombs rained down on Yemen and messages of celebration and even emojis flooded the chat.
I inadvertently discovered a massive security breach in the way the national security establishment conducts its business.
The National Security Council said in a statement that the thread appears to be authentic, saying they're reviewing how an inadvertent number was added. But Hegseth denied the allegations.
Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that.
CBS News national security contributor Sam Vinograd says sharing top secret details over Signal likely violated the Espionage Act.
By communicating classified information on a non-secure platform like Signal, senior U.S. government officials increase the chance that foreign governments could get access to sensitive operational security plans.
Shortly after the article was published, reporters asked President Trump about the chat.
I don't know anything about it. I'm not a big fan of The Atlantic.
Later, the White House press secretary said the president still has the utmost confidence in his national security team, including Mike Waltz. Some of those in that group chat will be on Capitol Hill testifying later today. Tony?
All right, Charlie, thank you very much. We're going to stay with the story for another beat and be joined by former National Security Advisor General H.R. McMaster. He's a CBS News contributor. General, thank you very much for joining us. We've got quite a few questions here, but I am curious right off the top if you have an opinion on what the bigger breach would be here, or bigger mistake, the adding of a journalist to this secure group or the using of a non-secure, non-governmental means to communicate all these things, including apparently war plans.
Yeah, Tony. Hey, great to be with you and Adriana. I think really there are three key issues, right? The decision to use Signal, as a means of convening a principal small group. The principles of the National Security Council, the President's National Security Council. The second is adding Jeff Goldberg to it, and a journalist to it. And then the third is just the content itself. What they chose to put on that chat. So I think these are all big mistakes. They've got to recognize that and put some mitigating measures in place and ask the question: hey, is this indicative of just a broader, sort of lackadaisical attitude about security? And if so, okay, how do they rein that in? How do they get new processes in place? Tony, every administration, has these kind of big problems initially. Mine was when I came in after the first month of the Trump administration was deliberate leaks to the media. This is a different kind of problem, and they've just got to get their arms around it.
So, General, you were National Security Advisor, the same role that Mike Waltz holds now. He is the one that invited the journalist to the group chat. How are these conversations supposed to happen? What is the actual protocol?
Well, the way you do it is you convene. If you're going to convene a principal small group of the National Security Council, you do it in the Situation Room, in a secure facility. If you have people who are operating remotely, like potentially the president's special envoy was in Moscow, you bring that person into the embassy there and you connect them by secure communications means. I mean, that's the proper way to do it. And obviously they had already had a discussion about this. You could tell that they're following on from a previous, what was probably a classified and closed discussion, because the decision had already been teed up for the president. So I think it's important then to once you're in that secure facility, when everybody leaves, to stress operational security. I mean, fortunately, you had a very responsible journalist on the other end of this, Adriana. Can you imagine if it had been somebody else who was really excited about the opportunity for the scoop and had published some of this material prior to the strikes? So I think hats off to Jeff on that.
So in an ideal situation, everyone's in the Situation Room. But if you can't be in the Situation Room, I think it was J.D. Vance who talked about the fact that he had to be on the road in Michigan for an event the day prior. How is it supposed to work? People are supposed to be in SCIFs, right? These sensitive, compartmentalized information facilities where you're basically in a black box, right? Can you have cell phones? Can any of this communication happen over any kind of text? Or does it have to be on a secure line?
It has to be on a government system. And, there are a lot of tech people, in this administration. How about giving them this problem? Why is there not a government app that can operate on communications devices whose hardware has been screened? And you can have, not the kind of conversations on here, but less sensitive conversations in a group chat. One of the problems also, Adriana, is the Presidential Records Act, which requires you to maintain all these communications, which you can't do on Signal if you've set messages to disappear. So I think it's time for some of the tech people who have come in to this administration to invent something, that you can have more secure than just an open text, some form of encryption that's compliant with the Presidential Records Act, and that it also just facilitates less sensitive, not this kind of communication, but less sensitive. But to answer your question, when you're on the road, you have secure phones. The vice president has it in his vehicle. He could take a call like this if necessary in his vehicle, but the preferred place to go is in a SCIF, a special compartmented intelligence facility.
Well, really great information. I think we all agree. To quote current National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, fist bump emoji, American flag, fire emoji. H.R. McMaster, we appreciate your time.
That's a direct quote.
That's a direct quote. Close quote. Close quote. Moving on, the legal showdown over the Trump administration's use of an 18th century law to deport suspected gang members is now in the hands of a federal appeals court in Washington. And one of the judges said that Nazis during World War II that were here in America got better treatment than the Venezuelans flown to El Salvador and sent to one of the world's most notorious prisons. Scott McFarland has been following this story, and he's here with more. Scott, good morning.
Tony, Adriana, good morning. This legal battle has been simmering for some time now, for weeks, and it could boil over to the U.S. Supreme Court. But on Monday, each side made its case, and during the process, arguments got quite heated. The legal fight over the Trump administration's deportation of Venezuelan migrants to an El Salvador prison played out in a D.C. appeals court Monday. And one of the three judges, Patricia Millett, made a blistering accusation about how the operation was carried out.
There were no procedures in place to notify people. Nazis got better treatment under the Alien Enemy Act.
That act is a wartime authority that doesn't require due process. Its use by the Trump administration has sparked a major battle after District Judge James Boasberg temporarily blocked such deportations. The Department of Justice is trying to get that decision overturned and pushed back yesterday.
The district court's order represents an unprecedented and enormous intrusion upon the powers of the executive branch.
At the White House, after the court hearing, Trump border czar Tom Homan blasted Judge Millett's argument.
First of all, it's ridiculous. It's just another example of a radical judge saying something that's just disgusting. To compare anything to the Nazis, the Holocaust, we follow the law.
The stakes here are immeasurable.
Tom Dupree is a former Justice Department official in the Bush administration.
These are fundamental questions that really get to the balance of power under our Constitution. And so the way this case is resolved is going to set a very important precedent for what happens in the United States over the next few years.
The judges on the appeals court say they'll issue a ruling within days, but that may not be the last word. This case could go to the Supreme Court. This is a 2025 battle over a 1798 law.
Right, that's a good way of putting it. So, Scott, I'm trying to keep all of this straight. There's also the district judge, right, who's been kind of parsing with the, battling with the DOJ over trying to get more information about the flights when these detainees were sent out. What's the latest with that?
Yeah, so many different fights, it's hard to keep track of them. This one could come to a head today. Back on March 15th, the judge tried to turn those planes around, saying, we're not sure this is something we should be doing. The Department of Justice didn't follow that order. They've been asked to provide, when did the planes take off? Why didn't they turn around? When did they land? They are declining to answer those questions still. Tony and Adriana, there are critics saying this could hold destabilize the old checks and balances system that was also created in the 1700s.
Because DOJ was arguing that the planes were over international waters at that point and that this judge didn't have jurisdiction, and now they're not providing the flight data. Okay. Scott McFarland, thank you for keeping track of all this. I'm glad it's you.
We're trying.
All right, you have a great team there, Justice. The FBI says it is launching a task force to investigate what its director calls domestic terrorism after dozens of violent attacks on Tesla vehicles and facilities. In the latest attack, police say explosive devices were found at a showroom in Austin, Texas yesterday. No injuries were reported. Since January, CBS News has identified at least 32 vandalism incidents across 16 states impacting Tesla cars, charging stations, or dealerships. Protests have been taking place nationwide against the role of Tesla CEO Elon Musk in the Trump administration and his efforts to cut government spending.
All right, the nation's infrastructure report card is out, and let's just say it might be time for summer school. Turns out there's a need for major improvements. The report looks at 18 different segments of infrastructure, including the nation's aviation system, and that system got a D+. This follows January's deadly mid-air collision in Washington, of course, and a series of other high-profile aviation incidents, which we've covered. Chris Van Cleve leading the way. He's got details now. Chris, good morning.
Good morning. The best performers were ports and railways, but roads, dams, and the aviation system were among the worst performers. And this comes as aviation safety is going to be the focus of a key hearing on Capitol Hill this week, and as the families of those killed in that deadly mid-air collision in January are demanding change.
It's so much loss. It's so much unnecessary loss.
Rachel Ferris feels like she has to be a voice for those silenced in January's mid-air collision over Washington, D.C.
I want people to remember that all 67 souls on board were precious. They were beautiful. This isn't just an accident that we move on from.
Among them, her cousin Peter Livingston, his wife, and their 2 young daughters.
I miss him terribly. And the moments that they'll really undo me is when I look at the pictures of his girls. Those are the moments that I find just impossible.
You won't get to see them grow up.
They won't graduate from high school. They won't go to the Olympics. They won't get married. They won't have babies of their own. And they deserved that. They deserved that.
She wants lawmakers and the FAA to take action now to make flying safer. The newly released infrastructure report card gave the U.S. aviation system a D+, unchanged from 4 years ago, due in part to the slow pace of modernization and a funding gap of $114 billion over the next 10 years.
While we have made progress, there certainly are warning signs and that tell us that we need to further invest.
Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is now calling for rapid updates to the country's aging air traffic control system.
Does it upset you that it takes people dying to get attention to make a change?
Somebody called it a tombstone mentality. Every regulation is written in blood, and that's not the way we should be doing things. I think that's outrageous.
Is that what makes you want to fight for change?
This loss is with us forever. And I don't want anyone else to experience this.
Overall, the nation's infrastructure improved to a C grade. 8 of the 18 segments, in fact, showed improvement, and the authors credit the billions of dollars being spent as part of the infrastructure bill for that. The segments that lagged behind tended to have large funding gaps and also need to focus on building for resiliency against things like severe weather. Later this week, the FAA, NTSB, and Army are expected to testify on Capitol Hill. Back to you.
Chris, thank you so much for that report. Ahead, it seems like everybody is talking about Greenland, but why? We're going to dig in, and the answer might surprise you. Plus, a bit later, what do the beach and the U.S. deficit have in common? We're going to find out together in today's Morning's Memory. Stay with us.
We're back, CBS Mornings. And by the way, have you heard about the hottest piece of real estate in the Arctic Circle area? It is a fantastic property, beautiful ice front location, sub-zero temperatures, thousands of friendly people. Technically, yes, part of the Kingdom of Denmark, but it is already home to one of America's most important military bases. There's a lot of critical satellite, missile warning, and surveillance systems. Talking about Greenland, people, and all these reasons, these qualities might be why Donald Trump really at the moment wants Greenland. He's eyeing it. He's talking openly about annexing it. And later this week, he is sending Second Lady Usha Vance and National Security Advisor, he of the fist bump emoji, Mike Waltz, to, take a little look around, take some video for me, send it back, let me know what you see. Folks in Greenland, they're not thrilled. They're not happy about it. They think it's aggressive. But before we freak out here, it's not a crazy idea, and it's not the first time that America has shown interest in Greenland. In fact, after World War II, the Truman administration outright offered Denmark about $1.5 billion in gold for Greenland. The Danes declined that generous offer, but maybe things will be different this time. I don't think it's a ridiculous waste of effort. I really don't. Joining us now is Heather Connolly. She served as a Deputy Assistant Secretary of State in the George W. Bush administration, where she helped facilitate relations with Denmark. Heather, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate it. I say this is not ridiculous because clearly it's been something that our government has thought about over the decades. But if you could just very simply, why? Why is it so important, or at least interesting, for so many American governments to consider, wow, it'd be great to have Greenland?
Well, thank you so much. It's great to be here with you. Yes, Greenland and the Arctic itself is so strategic for the United States. It helps protect us from Russian missiles. It protects our airspace, our maritime space. So this is really serious. It's important to America's security and as well as to our prosperity. So you're right. I think there's been 4 times in American history, even dating back into the 1800s, that we contemplated the purchase of Greenland. But the reason why Harry Truman didn't need to purchase it was that we were building towards the creation of NATO in 1949 and towards a bilateral defense agreement with the Kingdom of Denmark. So we got this security and the strength of purpose, but we did it through our allies. And that's really the important part here. Look, the Trump administration is absolutely right. The president is right. You're right. This is strategic for the United States. But if we're not careful, we're going to unfortunately have our allies fear us and resist, increasing our security and prosperity right now. And this visit was not welcomed by Greenlandic officials. It wasn't welcomed by Danish officials. It's not prepared. It's not prepared to deliver outcomes. So we need to be very careful here.
Greenlandic officials said, I read, we tried being diplomatic, but now you guys are just being aggressive, basically. So Heather, explain to us, you mentioned, in the 1800s when the U.S. was looking at Greenland, we purchased Alaska in 1867 for $7.2 million. Greenland has repeatedly said it's not for sale today. What options does the Trump administration really have here? Because the president has said he was going to get it one way or another.
Yeah, and this is what is really backfiring, this type of rhetoric. Again, we have a phenomenal ally in the Kingdom of Denmark and Greenlandic officials that we have this rich history of defense cooperation. They are ready to increase defense spending. The Danish government has increased defense spending. They're going to probably do it again, very focused on the Arctic security. They're open for business for the United States, so that door is open. But when we sort of drop in private visits, we use this aggressive language. Now officials are saying, you're provoking us. You are threatening our territorial integrity, our national security. What is going on here? We're losing those opportunities. And so this so-called private visit, it's the worst timing possible. Greenland had elections on March the 11th. They're in the middle of forming a government. They'll hold municipal elections next week. Things are in flux. You can't accomplish anything right now. We want to accomplish things. We want to increase security. We want to be able to have America invest more in critical mineral development in Greenland. But you have to go through it with partnership. So it's a win-win outcome. Right now, we're looking at a zero sum, and we're going to get a lot of pushback from our allies that are fearing us rather than welcoming us to enhance our security.
We are getting pushback, but I wonder if the calculation has changed. Heather, earlier you said the Truman administration didn't actually need Greenland because NATO was being formed and there were other ways to secure the U.S. Has the calculation changed today? Do we, bottom line, need it?
So it's important. We have it. I guess, Tony, that's the best way I can answer that. We have it. Now we need to increase our security. And where I see Denmark increasing their capabilities, more frigates, more sensors. I see the Canadians increasing their radar capabilities in the Arctic. I'm eager to see where the Trump administration is going to put American resources. We are woefully inadequate to protect even America's territorial waters in the Arctic. Our icebreaker strength is very low. Our new next icebreaker may not be ready until 2030. We need to increase our own security presence, put our own capabilities on the table, and work closely with our allies. That's how we're going to help secure the United States. Doing it alone, threatening our allies, now we're going to meet more resistance. And it doesn't have to be that way. Denmark is ready to be a supportive ally.
Heather Conley, thank you so much for your time.
Really
All
great.
right, that's today's By the Way. Ahead, the stories that caught our eye that we think will catch yours too. Plus, remember this.
I can't believe I ate that whole thing.
You ate it, Ralph.
I can't believe I ate that whole thing.
No, Ralph.
Who hasn't had a little regret at some point? Dr. John LaPook is here to talk about some other ways to get relief if you're feeling the burn. Heartburn. Stick around. Welcome back to CBS Mornings Plus. Here are the stories that caught our eye today. We now know that all the teams that will be competing in the NCAA Women's Basketball Sweet 16, even though USC won its game against Mississippi State, it was hit with this devastating news. Star player Juju Watkins will undergo season-ending surgery after she injured her right knee and had to be carried off the court in the first quarter of last night's game. Oh, she looks like she's in so much pain. USC is now set to face Kansas State in the Sweet 16. Now, the powerhouse UConn Huskies are on their way to a 31st straight Sweet 16 after beating South Dakota State. And Maryland overcame a 17-point deficit to beat Alabama in double overtime.
Dogs and cats are expensive. You may already know that, but do you know how expensive? According to a new report from pet care service Rover, dog owners can expect to have their costs jump 7%. And cat lovers could hit a 10% increase in their costs, all due to inflation and to tariffs. And when you add all those costs up, the 7%, the 10% over the pet's lifetime, Average cost for care of a dog over 10 years is $34,000. And for a cat that lives 16 years, more than $32,000. If you didn't have that cat or dog, you could pay for your child's wedding. You could
buy a Chevy Traverse SUV.
Buy a car.
Not the souped up kind.
But you wouldn't get all the love and the furry attention.
That's priceless, guys.
Priceless.
I'm not surprised it's this much. I mean, we took Lava to the vet because she was sick, and it was shocking how much they charged. But you know what? We love her.
Yeah.
She's my first child.
There are moments with the vet where you can put a number on love. You don't want to.
No, you
but
cannot.
You cannot. You're right. You're right.
No, Tony, this is why you don't have pets.
No, I grew up with dogs and I love dogs. I love dogs.
Sure you do. Okay. All right. So, guys, there was a traffic jam yesterday in Houston, Texas, but it wasn't cars causing the chaos. It was a group of cows and bulls. These four-legged fugitives from the Houston rodeo got loose after their trailer broke down. Some Good Samaritans hopped out of their cars and tried to help officers round them up. Any lassos? No. There was that one video a few years ago where somebody did have a lasso.
lassoed.
That was amazing. So after a few hours, the cattle were, quote, all accounted for and secured.
I love that. I think I would try to round them up. It'd make me feel like I'm back in time.
I'd be the one with the cell phone video being like, oh, this is going to be good for Caught tomorrow.
And that would be me running after them. I'm going to get a real urban cowboy. All right, time's now for Morning's Memory. Back in 1987, correspondent Robert Krulwich of Radiolab fame, also CBS fame before that, had a very unique way of explaining the not-so-simple topic of the deficit. All he needed was a beach and a shovel. Watch.
Now, to demonstrate, let's suppose that each tiny grain of sand on this beach represents $1. And let's suppose that the U.S. deficit keeps growing year after year, so it's about the same proportion that it is today. Well, if that happens, the USA is going to be in a big hole. In fact, here's the hole. In the year 2030, that's only 43 years from now, the Social Security surplus will be as big as the entire federal debt, meaning you could take this Social Security surplus and just fill up this complete hole. In short, in 43 years, there doesn't have to be any federal debt at all. Except if Congress uses this money to pay for tanks and to pay for schools and to pay for Medicare, then you baby boomers are going to have a major problem for your retirement. So either you're going to have a very poor old age, or you're going to make Congress slap a payroll tax on your kids' wages, so once again, your kids are going to have to pay through the nose for you.
Krulwich's prediction did not exactly pan out. He assumed that the Social Security surplus would grow untouched and then offset the federal debt. In reality, what happened is the surplus was gradually spent. There were rising costs, there were tax cuts, interest payments sent the national debt not down, but way, way, way up, far beyond his warning.
How much is it now?
$1 bazillion? I don't know.
$36.2 trillion, to be in fact.
Yeah, but the thing about it is,
bazillion.
this is where one thing to keep in mind, that some of that is actually held by other parts of the U.S. government, and then a lot of other debt is owned by just Americans who have treasury bonds and stuff. So it's, it's still big, but it's not straight up big.
Okay, maybe not a bazillion. All right. In this morning's Health Watch, so many of us have been there, that painful burning sensation after you eat. So we're talking about, of course, acid reflux and heartburn. It is a chronic condition known as GERD, short for, doctor, help me out here.
Gastroesophageal reflux disease.
That's right, what he said. Some estimates find about 20% of people in the U.S. suffer from it. I'm surprised it's not more. But when should we be concerned? CBS News chief medical correspondent Dr. John LaPook is here, as you heard, to shed some light on this. Dr. LaPook, also, of course, you work at NYU Langone Health. Tell us a bit about, what this is. What happens when we have that acid reflux?
Well, the stomach loves acid, helps with digestion. The esophagus, the swallowing tube, hates acid. Fortunately, there's a valve in between the stomach and the esophagus that stops acid from bubbling up and giving you symptoms. When that loosens up, acid bubbles up, and it can cause all sorts of symptoms, and that's including like heartburn. But it can cause other symptoms too. It can cause asthma, because the acid kind of goes up into your lungs, cough. It can even cause chest pain.
What's the difference between heartburn, acid reflux, and just, I ate too much, I feel gross?
Yeah, well, so I'm a gastroenterologist. People come in, they say, it hurts over here. Well, there's a wide, what's called the differential diagnosis. It could be a lot of things. If you have pain over here, you have to talk to people and get the story. It could be an ulcer. It could actually be a gallbladder disease, which, believe it or not, radiates to there, or it could be acid reflux. You know, common things tend to happen commonly, but one of the things I want people to leave here with is, you know, it's called heartburn, right? That word heart is in there, right? Where does that come from? So it comes because you can get acid bubbling up and giving you burning, but the other way around can be confusing. So people with heart attacks or angina can feel burning in their chest, and they say, oh, it's just a little bit of angina, no big deal, take antacids. I've had patients do that. So my advice to people is when you have something pop up, especially a new symptom, talk to your healthcare provider about it, because it can be tricky knowing when to do what.
So if someone is experiencing this, how should they know this might be not just acid reflux, but a heart problem?
Well, first of all, you know what sort of tends to be the triggers, right? So the triggers are nicotine, alcohol, fatty food, caffeine, chocolate, mint.
Triggers for acid reflux?
For acid reflux. Basically, anything that gives you even an iota of pleasure in life.
Fatty food?
Yeah, that can cause that. Being obese. And you know what? These days, the GLP-1 agonists, like Ozempic and Wegovy and et cetera, they decrease stomach emptying. That's part of the way that they work. And so acid can then bubble up. But I think when you have these symptoms, it can be very tricky to figure out whether it's heart, to answer your question. And you know, I really believe it's so important to have a healthcare provider you have a great relationship with, you can chat with and say, okay, these are my symptoms. And it's a story. You have to say, okay, what made it better? What made it worse? When did it come on?
So can you treat acid reflux if you continue to eat burgers, beers, and smoke cigarettes?
Well, you know, that stuff is not going to make it any better, but the things that can make it better are things like antacids. So you have pills that actually go into the stomach, or liquid that coats the esophagus and goes into the stomach. The liquid tends to work a little faster, and they hit that stomach acid and they go, tss, right? And they're decreasing the amount of acid in the stomach. If that doesn't work, you know, you have these pills, you've heard about them, that actually stop the acid from making acid, and they can get increasingly powerful, and they can be more important in the long run for controlling long-term symptoms. But bottom line here, talk to your healthcare provider. This is tricky to know when to get an upper endoscopy, when you actually look to see what's going on. It can be some serious stuff, or most commonly, it's something that can be treated with medication, diet, and weight loss.
Amazing. You're so clear at this stuff.
We're out of time. Next time I want to know if you're pregnant and you have heartburn, if it means the baby has a lot of hair. But we'll get to that in the next Health Watch.
I love that. Dr. LaPook,
no.
Thank you very much. That's definitive, the doctor said. All right, ahead, as AI starts to make its way into our lives, into our culture, into our office, what's coming up? Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and guy I used to work alongside, Gary Rivlin. Hey, Gary, is here with a new book to break it all down. That's next.
One of the best things about working for CBS News is having access to our archives. You can find all kinds of great things in there, like these stories tracking and predicting the future of artificial intelligence.
At present, it does little more than a baby can do. It can see a block on the table, pick it up, and build a tower of blocks. Simple, yes, for an intelligent being. In a machine, this behavior is incredibly complicated. It is called artificial intelligence.
Today's smartest robots can barely find their way around a room. Before Professor Fredkin's future becomes fact, we need to solve the riddle of artificial intelligence, to learn how to really communicate with the brain of a robot, the computer, how to reduce thinking to a series of equations, how to draw a picture of thought, how to program common sense into a computer. It is profoundly difficult.
Along with the usual search results, we also get a summary written by Microsoft's new AI-powered Bing.
Can we ask it a follow-up question?
And in a new feature simply called Chat, the system turns even complex questions into conversational answers.
Look at that. Wow.
I know that guy.
That guy on the forefront of AI reporting there.
There he is. And here we are still reporting on it. So AI is showing up just about everywhere, from chatbots to search engines, even appliances like washers and dryers.
And to learn more, there's a new book out right now. It's called AI Valley, Microsoft, Google, and the $1 trillion race to cash in on artificial intelligence. It looks at what is next. It's written by a fantastic reporter and writer, a Pulitzer Prize winner, a journalist named Gary Rivlin. And Gary is here with us right now. Gary, good to see you.
Great to be here.
We worked together for a brief moment at Tina Brown's old Newsweek. We won't tell war stories. Let's talk about AI. You've been covering tech since the 90s. You've seen a lot of trends, bubbles burst, come and go. Where does AI fit into the trajectory?
I mean, part of the reason I want to write this book is I was there writing about the .com bubble and, you know, and all its
and it's hype, it's freneticness and all, and it feels like we're basically in the mid-1990s with AI. It's here, but I think where you look back 10 years from now, it's going to be like looking at a website from 1997. Isn't that quaint kind of thing? Like I use
dial-up.
But it's you know, I use it all the time, but there's limits. You really have to know how to use it. It's very good at certain things. It's not trustworthy at other things.
So you write that the same tech giants that mess things up, burst the bubble, are possibly going to mess things up again. What is the big concern that you have, especially as it pertains to AI?
See, this stuff is so expensive. It's take billions and billions of dollars to train and run these advanced systems, these chatbots that some people are using. So the idea that there's this transformative technology, this powerful technology, is going to be in the hands of the same few giants, worries me, because I worry about things like autonomous AI, giving AI control over systems, over important functions. And these companies have proven that they'll put profits and competition ahead of trust and safety, which I think with AI in particular is essential.
Autonomous AI, as in the things we see in science fiction movies?
Autonomous AI, I'm not scared like a la Hollywood of laser-eyed robots. I mean, there has to be a human in the loop. We should think of these things as our assistants, as our co-pilot. But the idea frightens me that we put AI in charge of a system without a human. It doesn't really understand anything. It's a parrot. It's repeating words but doesn't really understand. It's impressive, but it's limited.
Yeah, and there you can easily contemplate major decisions up to and including life or death military decisions that AI would be making if you don't draw the line. We should point out that Google and Microsoft and Meta all have safety protocols that they say will ensure that this develops responsibly. But a lot of people turn to government and say, well, what is the role of government in all this? Is regulation the answer?
Yeah, I think it's essential that these companies rigorously test these systems before they release them to the public. The Biden administration, I thought, had a sensible rule, like we should red team them. They should require companies to red team them, hire outsiders to come and try to break into the systems, get them to misbehave so you could find the problems before they're released on the public. The Trump administration dropped those within a few days of taking over. I mean, these things are huge energy hogs. We need to prepare our electric system for what's coming, because I think we're seeing a doubling of data centers, which take up a lot of energy. Schools, parents, businesses, any institution really needs to be dealing with AI. It's here and exponentially increasing. And so we really should be having the hard conversations. Now, this could be a great thing, AI. I think I lean towards optimism as long as we're deliberate about it.
I once had a conversation with one of the heads of the major AI companies, and I said, how do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10? And he said 10 out of 10 excited and 10 out of 10 scared.
Yeah.
Gary Rivlin, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. AI Valley is a book. It's fantastic. It'll teach you everything you need to know, and it's on sale right now.
Ahead, CBS Mornings Deals. TV host and founder of Acaria Beauty, Debbie Matenopoulos, is here to share her skincare products and routines. Stay with us. Time now for CBS Mornings Deals. We have several items at exclusive discounts of up to 33%. So to start shopping right now, scan that QR code you see on your screen or visit cbsdeals.com. Knocking's lifestyle expert Gabrielle Kerr is here. Hello.
Hello.
So what do we have here?
All right, well, it's grow time, Adriana.
I love grow time.
Spring is planting season, and before you throw the bulbs in the ground, the flowers in the pot, there is one crucial prep step you need to do, and that's to till the soil. Growing up, we had a garden, and I remember seeing my dad in the yard with this big red monster of a tiller, and it was just really hard work on him. Sunjo is here to put that back-breaking work of preparing the soil behind us with their cordless tiller. So what you're seeing here, 10 steel blades, 6 inches deep. I'm gonna turn this on, and stand back. What this is gonna do is slice up all the weeds, but also loosen and aerate the soil so it's much easier to plant. And bottom line, tilling makes for better soil And that means that you
You're
smell
getting
that,
that
right?
soil smell.
Right,
I feel like
because
we're
you're stirring up the
outside.
nutrients and all the goodness. So if you head to CBSdeals.com, you're going to save $40 off. That's a 27% savings. And this is
great.
cordless, so no gas, no fumes,
And
no
probably
oil.
less weeding because you're breaking up all the
You're breaking all the weeds.
Okay, so
all right, wait for you,
are these
madame.
real?
These are real roses. This comes from Cottage Farm. So now that we've prepped the soil, we're going to plant with Cottage Farms a 3-piece show-stopping rose collection. And just to let you know, these are rapid growing. You will have blooms. By Memorial Day, you'll have beautiful blooms.
Wow.
Let me take you through the variety. So with the white in the front, these are called our Bolero. They have a lemony, verbena scent to them. In the middle here is our pink Delish roses. The Delish, they also have a citrusy scent, and these are a tea rose. And then down in front, you have our pinkish coral, Sweet Mademoiselle, and it's a fresh fruity fragrance.
They smell so good. How much are these?
All right, so you're going to get all three. You don't have to make a choice when you head to CBSdeals.com. The 3-piece collection is $39.99, less than a dozen roses.
Wow.
And these come back every year. So you're going to have fresh flowers and fragrance for your home year-round, every year.
We were talking at the commercial break. Who's going to get
to take this
these
home?
Right.
I'll be
all
on
the white ones.
I'll be on Amtrak with it.
I know, right? Hi, Debbie. So good to see you.
Well, today is Greek Independence Day,
That's
so
right,
we had
my
to bring
people.
our girl, Debbie Matenopoulos, in the house, who was inspired by her Greek heritage to create the Acaria Beauty line. So, Debbie, I would love for you to just kind of tell us what inspired you, and we're going to get into each product.
Okay, right now you're going to smell Mediterranean sea salt because that's the smell of all these. So I created, this is the star of the show. This is my beauty balm, my ageless beauty balm. And when I tell you, Adriana, this is really incredible. I was inspired, give me your hand and let me see. Just rub that in and you can see how glowy it is. I was inspired to do this because I have very sensitive skin, and anything they put on us, I would break out in hives. I would have a really bad reaction. So I decided to take matters into my own hands, make something that is good for sensitive skin, for every type of skin, that is not going to have any reaction. It's clean, it's green, it doesn't have any, I don't make false claims, no hype, just results. And I wanted to make sure it was affordable for everybody because, you know, people make these creams, they're out of people's price points. It's ridiculous.
But Debbie, let's talk about where your Greek heritage comes in because it's the ingredients that really make the difference.
Yes, it is. And my mom and my yaya and my tias, they'd be like, honey, look mommy's skin. Look mommy. Mommy looks so young. Mommy's 75, I look 50. And she's not wrong. And I would be running to all these dermatologists in Beverly Hills and in New York to get all these expensive treatments. And the truth of the matter is, go back to your roots, guys.
Yes.
Listen to your family. They know. I found it. I felt like Elsa.
Now, but if you really want to supercharge your routine, then you'll also want to add the phytoretinol serum, which is a plant-based retinol.
It's plant-based, so it doesn't interact with the sun.
So you don't have to
can
be,
use it during the day.
scared about the sun.
Come on in. I see that you like it. It doesn't interact with the sun. It 3 to 3 months, and your skin will totally be transformed.
And instant gratification with the beauty balm. I will just let you know my new obsession. I love this beauty balm.
Olive oil's in this.
It is a really big hit. Yeah, people have been talking about it.
Well, if you head to CBSdeals.com, you're going to save up to 31%. The deal starts at $39.
All right, go to CBSdeals.com, and thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Bring me home with my Greek wife.
That's right.
Zito elas.
Ay, ay, ay.